Hello and welcome to tonight's webinar, Thrive in Menopause. And I really want to thank you for joining me, those who have joined live on the call and those who are watching the recording. And I know for many women that when they get to their menopause stage of life, or as they're approaching this stage of life, it can be a really, really confusing time. You sometimes feel like your body doesn't belong to you. You're getting all of these physical symptoms. You feel really, really uncomfortable. For some women, they start to have mood shifts. They're irritable. They feel a little bit lost. And in fact, if you remember back to what it was like when you first got your period, it's a bit like that. It's like you're going through puberty all over again, except you have all of this extra baggage that you've built up over the previous 30 to 40 years as you were cycling through your normal menstrual cycle. And I know that for a lot of women, they might go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, either they tell you there's nothing you can do about it, you just did menopause, it's just perimenopause, go away and live with it, it'll be all over in 10 to 15 years, then you won't have to worry. Or they say, well, the only thing you can do right now is to take some drugs, and they offer you HRT or they offer you antidepressants or some type of pharmaceutical solution. The reason why I am putting this webinar on, and the sole purpose of the work that I do, is to share with women that there is another way, that experiencing all of these symptoms and feeling lost and all of this doesn't have to be your normal. It can actually change, and there are some things that we can do, which I'm going to talk about in this webinar, which can actually change the way you experience this stage of your life. And in fact, you can step into your inner wisdom and truly thrive and bloom at this stage of life. And when I'm talking about this stage of life, I'm talking about probably 10 years prior to you actually getting to menopause, and maybe 5 to 6 years after that actual change. So because the hormones are moving along up and down all the time during that time period. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more when I go through a few more definitions. So this webinar, I want to share with you some of the key things. I'm going to share with you my story and how I experienced how I experienced menopause. And I'm also going to share with you some of the stories of some of the women that I talk to and some of my clients as well. So let me start with, I just want to start with a video. I want to share this video with you because I think that this video, well, let's just watch the video and see what happens. We'll just get the...
All right.
How you doing?
Hi, good.
Like, you ever done this before?
No. It's exciting.
So tell me, how old are you?
19. 24.
29.
I'm 41. I'm going to be a mother for the first time.
42.
71.
I'm 74.
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're just going to talk. You're going to show me stuff. Do I need my glasses?
I'm going to show you some slides, and I'd like you to fill in the blank and put the words "for her age" at the end of the sentence.
All right.
She has flawless skin for her age. Beautiful for her age.
She looks better than most 20-year-olds for her age.
She looks great.
She is beautiful.
Fierce for her age.
In burlesque, I love it.
That might be a little bit inappropriate for her age.
Jane looks amazing for her age.
She doesn't look her age. She's pretty hot.
For her age.
For her age. Her age. I'm going to show you some other slides now. So I'm just going to ask you to read the sentences that we provided for you.
Okay.
She dances well for a white girl.
That's not nice at all.
It's just ridiculous.
She's rich for an immigrant.
No. That's so gross.
She's funny for an Asian.
Oh my God, they're getting worse.
Well, this girl's half Asian. And me and her dad are pretty freaking funny. So she's going to be funny.
She's pretty for a thick girl. I hate that. Beauty should not be defined by your size. Yeah, I hate that. She drives well for a woman.
You can't think like that. And then you bring up your kids like that. Then you have a society like that. We got another one? Is it going to be worse? There we are.
She looks good for her age.
So I didn't expect this to fall apart.
They're all the same, narrow-minded and ignorant.
I'm guilty. I say for her age all the time. It's harder to look good in your late 40s. You can be hot at 23 and you just roll out of bed.
Sometimes I think it's good and sometimes I don't.
I didn't realize I was really insulting anybody, only because if someone says it to me, I think it's good.
It's not a compliment.
It's really like a backhanded compliment.
I think it is a bias. People are definitely labeled by their age.
I guess for her age is more commonly accepted. This is okay to say.
Which is like, why? You look good is a lovely compliment, but to qualify it, you're saying, well, in comparison to the mainstream of beauty, you don't look good, but you look good for how old you are.
It's degrading.
I think everyone should understand this. I think people be treated differently.
Say you look good, period. Don't add for her age.
No, I'm going to leave the for your age part off.
Unless you're asked these questions, I don't think you have the mind to start this conversation.
You know what? Everyone's going to get older.
So it's an interesting video, and the reason why I played that video is because I think when we're talking about menopause, that age or growing older is a big part of women's experiences, because for many women, they can start to feel like that they're past their use by date, that they're getting older. They don't embrace who they are. And this is one of my key missions, my passions, is to show women that no matter what their age, they are beautiful. And as we grow older, what we get is, when we may lose some of the perfect, the young looks, is what we gain is our wisdom. We have experience, and society needs us more than ever to be able to show up in the magnificence of who we are. Now, for those of you who don't know me, there's all the stuff is there on the screen about who I am and what I do. Yes, so I've been a naturopath for nearly 16 years. I'm also a kinesiologist. I now primarily work in the coaching space as a health and lifestyle and mindset coach. All this stuff is all on the screen, and you can see it. But that's the essence of who I am, is someone who truly wants to make a difference in the lives of women, and to really help women to step into their inner wisdom and to show up in the world as the best version of themselves. And that is my mission, that is my passion. And when I first started to experience menopause, I had my children late. So I had my first child at 40 and my second at 43. So good chance I was actually, once I had my second child and finished breastfeeding her, by that stage I was 45, probably nearly 46. So I was already in what would have been the perimenopause stage of life. So I kind of came straight out of pregnancy and moved into menopause. But for me, I didn't really have any expectations about what menopause would be like, except of course the fact that my period would stop. And one of the reasons is because my mother had a full hysterectomy at 24 when I was only 2 years old. So I didn't really understand what menopause was about, because I didn't know that from my mother. I knew menopause from what I learned as I was studying to be a naturopath. I also had a couple of clients when I was in clinic who were in menopause and who were coming to me to treat their symptoms. But I didn't really understand it. I was kind of, in a way, I suppose I was taught that it was a condition that needed to be treated, that we had herbs, we could use herbs that could treat menopause. I now know that there's so much more to menopause than just the symptoms. And whilst I acknowledge that many women do experience symptoms, and I experienced some too, hot flushes weren't too bad for me, but what I got was severe joint pain. And I never realised that joint pain could be related to menopause. And I've since learned that with a drop in estrogen that our tendons can actually get quite tight, and means that we lose a lot of mobility. Plus I also had osteoarthritis in one hip. And I spent 3 years in absolute chronic pain that actually stopped me from sleeping. So I couldn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping properly, and I was trying everything to fix the problem. And it's probably actually only within the last 12 months, things have changed because I've started doing things a little bit differently. I started looking at the food that I was eating. I started looking at my belief systems around aging. I started actually doing a lot of the work that I teach my clients now. And whilst I still have actually quite severe osteoarthritis, and at the moment I'm about to go and see a surgeon because it's possible that I need to be looking at a hip replacement if I want to continue to be active and to do the things that I love to do, which is hiking. But the last few, 12 months or so, the majority of my symptoms with the changes that I've made in my life have actually gone away. Yes, I do get a little bit of hip pain, but that's only after doing specific exercises. But the constant pain and the overall fibromyalgia type pain that I used to have, that is completely gone. I don't have that anymore. I've got energy. I sleep through the night. Most nights, sometimes around the full moon and the new moon, my sleep might be a little bit out of whack. But generally, I deal with life pretty well. And I share the stuff that I do with other women. And when they make the changes as they're working with me, they start to experience life really well too. So what I really want to share with you today is how it's possible for you to navigate this stage of life with ease. And even if you might actually be experiencing some symptoms right now, it can all change. So let's start with what is menopause, because there's a few different terms here. Now, in fact, what menopause is like a line in the sand. It's just a time. You're said to be in menopause if you haven't had a period for 12 months, and there's no other reason why you haven't had a period. There's no pregnancy or other issues that are going on. So in general, it's when you haven't had a period for 12 months, you are considered to be in menopause. The time prior to that is known as perimenopause, so peri means before, and the time after that is known as postmenopause, so post meaning after. So in fact, many women are in this transition as they go through menopause on both sides, the peri to the post, could be up to 10 to 15 years that this change happens. And what is happening in this time is hormones are starting to change. Now, for many women, when they get to generally by their mid-40s, there's starting to be a shift in hormones. Sometimes that happens earlier. In some women, it does happen earlier. And that will happen, quite often happen earlier when there's already a significant imbalance within the hormones. And a lot of women come into menopause with their hormones out of balance. The most significant type of imbalance is too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. So what we call estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance is what causes a lot of the symptoms that are now called PMS. Many women are estrogen dominant, and that comes from the fact that we live in a society where we're being exposed to toxic estrogens, what we call xenoestrogens, which are in contraceptive pills. They're in makeup. They're in cosmetics. They're in a lot of our personal care products. These are all synthetic estrogens or toxic estrogens that impact our natural hormonal balance, and we tend to have too much estrogen as we come into this stage of life. And when hormones are imbalanced, there is a set difference between estrogen and progesterone, and basically that difference. So I'm just going to use some numbers just to describe it. So let's assume that progesterone, let's say it's at 5, and estrogen is sitting at 10. And so the difference between the two of them is 5. So if we maintain that difference of 5 all of the time, our hormones are said to be in balance. But if the estrogen starts to increase from 10 because the environment, the foods, and everything else that's going on, and it goes from 10 up to, say, 15, now we have a difference between progesterone and estrogen of 10. So we've got a gap. And that's what we call estrogen dominance. So now we've got a gap of 10, and that creates symptoms. As we come into menopause, the first hormone that shifts is progesterone, and progesterone starts to drop. So instead of having progesterone at a level 5, it might start to go down to, say, a 4 or a 3. So the gap between estrogen and progesterone has now got bigger, and that gap produces more symptoms. So ideally, when we come into menopause, as our progesterone levels drop, now our ovaries produce progesterone, or the egg within the ovary. As the egg releases, it produces progesterone because the progesterone supports the egg in the second half of the cycle, and if there's a pregnancy, it supports it for the first 3 months of the pregnancy, and if not, progesterone drops off, and then you have a period. So as you get closer and closer to menopause, you start to stop ovulating, so you skip ovulation. So when you skip ovulation, your progesterone levels start to come down. And so this causes this bigger gap between progesterone and estrogen. Now, in the ideal world, what would happen is the adrenals would actually support your body. The adrenals can produce some progesterone, and it should actually take up the production of the progesterone as the ovaries drop out. But unfortunately, many women, as they're at this stage of life, their adrenals are not working at optimal levels because they are burnt out. They have been doing so much, they've been giving so much to so many people that their adrenals are struggling to survive. The adrenals need to be able to produce adrenal hormones, so cortisol and adrenaline, and it will stop producing all other hormones to keep the body alive, and cortisol and adrenaline is required to keep the body alive. So that's why we start to experience symptoms. Now, the symptoms that occur as progesterone drop, a lot of them, it can actually cause very heavy bleeding, and excessively heavy bleeding. It can also affect your moods. Progesterone is a calming hormone, so it can cause, it's anti-anxiety, so it can cause anxiety. And even if you've never really experienced anxiety before, all of a sudden you're waking up in the middle of the night with your heart beating, and you're feeling really anxious. It can cause a lot of mood swings. So lots of the initial symptoms, and it also causes hot flushes, is not to do with estrogen. Most people think it's all to do with estrogen dropping. In fact, it's because estrogen is actually too high. It's out of balance with where progesterone is because progesterone has dropped down. So it's the gap between the estrogen and the progesterone that causes the symptom. So progesterone is the first hormone that starts to drop off. Then estrogen will start to drop. And as estrogen drops, that's when we can start to experience other symptoms, which things like joint pain. So as estrogen keeps our joints nice and supple and moving, so we can start to find we get stiffness as the tendons start to tighten up. Also, we find that our skin can get a lot drier. Some women experience vaginal dryness. Now, this is all to do with the fact that the estrogen is starting to drop down, and there's still an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen, and the body, once again, is able to produce estrogen if the liver is working well, but if the liver's not working well, it won't produce the extra estrogen as when the ovaries stop producing what they require. So the body actually does have backups to produce these hormones as we naturally drop the levels from our reproductive system. But unfortunately, our body, the way we've been treating our bodies, the foods we've been eating and the lives we've been living, means that our body can't produce the extra hormones to allow a gradual drop in hormones so that we don't actually notice the change. Our body doesn't notice the change. The third hormone that starts to drop is testosterone. Now, women do have testosterone, they just don't have a lot of it. So as that drops, that's when we start to find that women will lose their drive, they lose their motivation, because that's what testosterone is all about. It's about kind of going out there and doing things. Plus, there's also physical changes going on as well. So they're the reproductive hormones that change, and then our other hormones that are also playing a role is stress. And as I mentioned before, many women, as they come into this stage of life, are pretty burnt out because they've been giving to everybody else, and they haven't been filling their own cup back up. They haven't been nurturing themselves. So many women are close to adrenal burnout, or their adrenals are not functioning ideally. Their cortisol levels are out of balance. They've got too much cortisol streaming around their bodies. Insulin also plays a really big role, and insulin is what will, when we become insulin sensitive, we start to put excess weight on around the waist, and also high levels of cortisol does exactly the same thing. So when women are started to experience weight gain, even though their diets and everything may not be changing, this is primarily due to high levels of cortisol and increased insulin sensitivity. And also sometimes it is the thyroid, because the thyroid, which is what controls our metabolism, also many women have suboptimal thyroid function. So if you went to the doctor and they did tests on your thyroid, they would probably tell you that there's nothing wrong with you, but that's because they're looking for a thyroid disease. But in fact, your thyroid may not be functioning as well as it could. So it's not functioning optimally, which means you're not using up the fat stores and you're metabolizing the food as quickly as you could. So all of this plays a role, and it all starts to change, and it all starts to change roughly as I said, within that 10-year period before your periods actually, your cycle actually stops. So it's not always related to the fact that you're no longer reproductively active. It's also to do a lot with stress, diet, and lifestyle. So there are many different symptoms that are associated with menopause, and I just want to be really clear that these are symptoms that are associated with menopause, because there are some symptoms which are specifically related to the change in hormones, but there's also a lot of other things that are happening in this time of life which get blamed on menopause. I'm in quite a few different Facebook groups that are specific for menopause, and it seems like every single symptom that comes up, someone says, is this a symptom of menopause? And someone else says, yes, well, I've got it, so yes, it must be. So a lot of things get blamed on menopause, when in fact, it's not necessarily even to do with menopause, it's what you've been doing in your life. So, you know, for me, osteoarthritis, yes, it's come to the fore now when I'm in this stage of life, and there's a bit more inflammation going on. But menopause didn't cause my osteoarthritis. My osteoarthritis is something that has been happening for many years. It comes from years of being a ballet dancer, then being a runner, being very active, and then also spending a lot of time in a role where I sit a lot of the time. So, you know, it was being my life choices that have actually caused my osteoarthritis, not menopause. But when as I've come into menopause, I've experienced more inflammation, and that's because as the estrogen levels drop, so estrogen is an anti-inflammatory, it's a natural anti-inflammatory hormone. As my estrogen levels have dropped, I'm actually feeling the inflammation a lot more, which the inflammation was already there before I got to menopause. Just now I feel it a lot more, so I experience a lot more pain. Well, I'm not anymore. So we've got to look at what these symptoms are, and are they really related to the shift in the hormones, the reproductive hormones, or are they more related to the fact that we are stressed to the eyeballs? We're not eating the right food. Many women are drinking way too much alcohol. The nightly wine to get through is a big cause of a lot of this that's going on, and I'm going to share a bit more about that in a minute. Or is it other things that are actually causing these symptoms, but we're blaming them on menopause. Every woman goes through menopause. Any woman who's ever had a menstrual cycle will go through menopause at some stage in their life. But not everybody experiences the same journey. Some women have symptoms, other women don't have symptoms. Those that have symptoms, they all have different symptoms. It's not the same symptoms for every single woman. So we've got to start to think about, why is it that some women don't have any symptoms and basically the only thing that happens is that their period stops, and other women are having massively, symptoms that are really impacting their life. We've got to start getting to the underlying cause of that. And one of my main messages is that even though we have these common symptoms that are associated with menopause, common does not mean normal. Menopause is a natural transition in life. It is not normal to have all of these symptoms. What is normal is for your period to stop. Maybe you might have a little bit of irregularity going on for a few months, where you might go for a couple of months without, and then you start again. But that's what's normal. But that's not what is common. So we want to get really clear on common versus normal. So the primary causes of all of these symptoms, and I've already mentioned a few of them, adrenal stress plays a really big role. The adrenals are designed to produce the reproductive hormones, some of the reproductive hormones, as our ovaries start to shut down and stop, and ovulation slows down and stops. Liver stress. Liver plays a really big role, because liver is where hormones are metabolized, where they're cleared out from the body. And if the liver isn't working properly, we will have some hormones, in particular estrogen, continually to circulate in the body and not be cleared, which means we get the imbalance between estrogen and progesterone becomes higher. Also, the liver can actually produce some of these hormones when the ovaries shut down, and if it's not working properly, it's not going to be able to modulate the hormones. So basically, the liver is required to modulate all hormones. And unfortunately, as I said, many women are drinking way too much alcohol, and it's putting stress on the liver. Or they've had a life whereby they've been on the oral contraceptive pill. Women who've done IVF and taken a lot of the fertility drugs put so much stress on the liver. And from the women I've spoken to, I found that those who have done IVF treatments are the ones who tend to experience the worst symptoms when it comes to menopause. And this is because the liver is under stress, and the liver really needs to be cleaned out, to be detoxed, and to actually, we need to really nurture the liver. Now, the liver is a marvelous organ. It can regenerate itself. Even if we chopped half of the liver out, the body would still completely function with only half a liver. But we need to make sure that it's doing its job, in that it's actually eliminating toxins and not recirculating them. Coming into menopause, as I mentioned, with already having hormones out of balance, and this is very, very common. It just becomes a state of life for most women. They don't realise how imbalanced their hormones are, even while they're cycling. They're just people, I know so many women who think PMS is normal. It is not normal. Once again, it is common. It is not normal. You should not be experiencing any PMS. In the couple of years that, 5 years from the time when I finished breastfeeding until my period started to slow down, I was getting a period every 28 days. There were no symptoms whatsoever. It's just one day I would start to bleed. I would bleed for 4 to 5 days, no symptoms, no pain, no mood changes, no nothing. Then I'd stop bleeding, and then I'd go for another 28 days. That was the best, I have to say, that my cycle ever was. Before that, I experienced a lot. I had lots of issues. I had fibroids and I had to have removed, and I had a lot of issues, and it took me a long time to balance my hormones so that I could fall pregnant. And then coming out of pregnancy, because pregnancy is a very big reset for me, I went to a totally normal cycle. And it is possible, and many women do have normal cycles. They don't have this common all of the symptoms that can be associated with PMS and menstrual cycle. So coming into menopause, many women have already got an imbalance between their progesterone and the estrogen. The estrogen levels are way too high, so they're in estrogen dominance. So as progesterone drops, they will experience symptoms. Some of it is genetic, but it's only about 5%. I know that I used to, when I was in clinic and I had women who were in the perimenopause stage and they weren't sure what was going on, I used to ask them if they knew how their mother went through menopause or their grandmother. Now, for many women, they didn't know this because it's something that wasn't talked about a lot, but knowing how your mother went through menopause, or a sister or an auntie, might give you an idea of how you could go through menopause, but it only really accounts for 5%. There's so many other aspects, but if you deal with all of the other aspects and everything else is fine, well then we've got to be looking at the genetics. But the biggest thing, I think, in my belief, is our beliefs around aging. And as I showed that video at the beginning of this webinar, our beliefs around, our society belief around aging, that as women age and they are no longer in their active reproductive years, there's very little value for these women in society. Now, that is not true. Of course it's not true, but that is a belief system of society. So many women I speak to, and I've experienced it myself, where you feel invisible. It's like you're out there and it's like people kind of look through you as if you don't exist. And I never thought that that was a thing until I experienced it myself. And so many women say they feel the same way, as they get to a certain age, they feel invisible. And we look at the media, and the media, we're seeing ads. It's like, we put this cream on your face so that you look young again, you know, have the skin of a 20-year-old, colour your hair and get rid of your grey so that you look young again. Why do we want to look 20? Our bodies are not 20, you know, and it's actually okay to be in love with the body that you have. And yes, it might be getting a little bit softer. It might be getting a bit saggy in the places. You might be getting some silver through your hair. All of this is experience. This is your life experience. If your tummy's soft, and that's because you birthed children into the world. You know, you created children. And even for women who haven't had children, you know, there's things that you've been through in your life. You've got experience, you've got wisdom. We don't need to have the bodies and the faces and the looks of a 20-year-old. Let's embrace who we are. And we need to start talking more about, you know, and rather than using the word aging, and you would have seen the quote right at the beginning on the very first slide, is that growing older will happen, but aging is optional. Aging is our belief systems about growing older. You know, we don't have to age gracefully. We will just grow older. But we're growing older every day since the day we were born. We've always been growing older. But when we were younger, we used to celebrate our birthdays, you know, and getting older. Now we tend to not celebrate getting older, and you know, we try to get younger again or look younger again. So we need to change our own beliefs around aging. We need to change our own beliefs around menopause. Many women I know that I speak to who aren't at that stage of life yet are scared because they've heard all of the horror stories. Women tend to like sharing the horror stories around birth, around menopause, and all of that. But the thing is, there is so many beautiful stories. And earlier, last year and the beginning of this year, I had a magazine called the Marga Woman magazine. And in that magazine, every month I would share a story of a different woman each time about how menopause was for them, and for all the stories were very enlightening, and they were very positive about how they were able to step into their wisdom and own who they were and heal the wounds of the past. And this is one of the reasons why I had the magazine, to share that type of information. All of that's now, I put that on my blogs and all of that now, and I talk about it all of the time, because we really need to change this belief around aging and our beliefs around what menopause is all about. Menopause is not, is not a sign that you're no longer of any value. And women who are mothers, there's a lot more that goes in there as well, because obviously your children are growing older, they're becoming more independent, they no longer need you as much. You will always be a mother, but you may no longer be active mothering. So that then, all those belief systems about yourself and your values and all of that comes into that as well. So all of this stuff needs to be addressed, because once we address these, then you will find that you will be able to transition through menopause with relative ease. So these are the underlying causes of what's going on. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to take a break and a drink. So as I was doing all of this work, and I was doing lots of different research, and I was trying to work out, and I wanted to know why some women had trouble when they were going through menopause and why some women didn't. I looked at other cultures in the world and found that there were some cultures where they didn't even have the word menopause. It's not even anything in their language. They've got no meaning for it. In Fiji, there's no word for it. You know, they just stop their period, and their first thing is when they stop their period is, are they pregnant? If they're not pregnant, well, okay, their period is stopped and they would be in what we would now call menopause, but they have nothing else associated with it. In the Aboriginal, the Indigenous Australian culture, women, as they come out of their reproductive years, become the wise women, the elders of the tribe. In Asia, a lot of Asian countries who are living a traditional Asian life, not those who adopted the Western life, they also don't experience the symptoms that we do. Japan, the word they use means second spring, so they also don't actually have the they don't experience menopause the way that women in the Western world do. There's not all these symptoms that keep coming up. And I really wanted to know more about why this was so. And so I started to look at what's the difference. And I looked into, for some of you may have heard of the blue zones. The blue zones are the areas of the world where people live the longest, and there's a book about it. There was a lot of research done on it, and there were 5 different categories of the blue zones. But they found that when a person lived those in line with those 9 different categories, that they're likely to live over 100. So I took that information plus all of the other information, and I created what is known as the 7 selves. The 7 selves to thriving in menopause, and they are the foundational self, the self of knowing who you are, what it is you want, what your vision for your life is, what's important to you. The physical self, so that's addressing, you know, a lot of the symptoms. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. The emotional self, so looking at the emotions that come up as we age and as we go through menopause. The social self, who you are with your partner and your friends, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail. The creative self, once again, the creativity within you, because women, our feminine energy is all about creativity. And if we're no longer, I mean, when we're in our reproductive years, the ultimate creation obviously is creating life and creating creating a child. So what do we replace that creativity with as we're no longer in our reproductive years? Your spiritual self, and then your connected self. Now, I don't have time to go through all of them, and my full Embrace program does cover every single one of them, and some women need to work on some of the selves more than the other selves, and but I cover that in my main Embrace program. What I'm going to talk about today is the physical self, the social self, and the connected self. And the reason why I've chosen these is because these are part of my Embrace introductory program, which I'm going to be sharing with you for those of you who are interested at the end of this webinar. But let's start with the physical self. Now, the physical self, and this is where women are experiencing menopause, perimenopause, and the symptoms within their body. And obviously that's what is top of mind most of the time, because when we're not feeling well, that's like it then affects our emotions and so much more. And as I was looking at women who were transitioning through this stage of life relatively easily, and I looked at the other cultures, I knew that diet played a role. I knew that movement played a role, sleep, the environment, and managing stress. So these are the 5 things that I knew played a role. But as I looked at all of these different cultures in these women, I couldn't come up with a single solution that they all did. So there wasn't a single diet that every one of them did. They all had different diets. Now, it was all based, obviously, on whole foods, so no processed foods. But some cultures and some women eat meat, others don't. Some have a mix, or it can be anywhere in between. So it can go from vegetarian through to, paleo, or somewhere in between. They all did different type of movement. The sleep patterns was everything was different. So I couldn't find, so like, this is the diet that you should have if you want to lose weight and you're in menopause. This is what you should do if you've got these symptoms. I just couldn't find that single solution that worked with everyone. And then I realized that it was not a single solution. And about 18 months ago, I came across a system of personalised health. Now, when I worked in clinic, I did do a little bit of personalised health in that I worked with the blood type diet and basically prescribed based on people's blood type. And that worked in about 70% of the cases. But when I found this personalised health solution, which is called pH 360, and feel free to Google it, it's all science-based. What it did was it categorised people. It looked at everyone basically on a 360-degree circle, and it categorised people on as degrees on that circle. So every 5 degrees was a different, what we call a biotype, or a different health type. And based on where you sat on that circle, then tells us the type of foods that you should be eating, what your body requires, whether or not it requires to be eating more vegetables than meat, or whether or not it needs vice versa, more meat than vegetables. Also tells us what time you should be eating, whether or not you're good at intermittent fasting or you need to be having 5 meals a day. It also lets us know what type of movement should you be doing, lots of high intensity, or should you be doing low impact. So, and when you should be exercising. It just goes into so much detail, this pH 360 platform. And I've been keeping an eye on it for the last 12 months, and a few months ago I decided that I would actually go ahead and do all of my training in this platform. And the platform, as I said, is all, it's based on lots of things. So it's based on traditional Ayurvedic principles, also TCM principles. There is a lot of science in there, so they've gone and they've got lots of research about different body types, and lots of research. So there's a lot of science in there. They've also done over 10,000 different case studies where they've actually used that data to build the platform and create the algorithms, and they continue to modify it all of the time as they get more and more data going in. And the great thing about this platform is that it is very individualized. So once you put in all your base data, so your measurements and information about yourself, it's based on your genetics and then what we call the epigenetics, so the environment that your genes live in. It takes the two of them together, and then it will come up with the specific foods that you should be eating. And they're also seasonal, so there'll be a diet that you need now. There's a diet that you will need in 6 months' time, because the seasons change, the foods are different. And also, as you move through and your body changes, and then you lose weight or your symptoms change, then the diet will also change with you. And the same with the movement and all of that as well. So when I discovered this, as I said, I went and I did my training. I'm now trained, and I've actually been working with a few women. I've got a few women who are working with me at the moment, and I'm seeing some fantastic results in a very, very short time. Now, all of them, obviously, well, not obviously, but all of them are looking to lose some weight, because this is generally the reason, well, that was the reason why they kind of came to me. But over and above the weight loss, now all of them at the moment that are working with me, that I've got on this program, it's only a month program, they have all lost a minimum of 4 kilos. There's women who had constant pain, joint pain, that is gone. Someone else had reflux, that's gone. She had constant reflux. Another was having trouble sleeping at night, Now she's sleeping through. And this is all in less than a month that we're actually seeing some changes. And it's not with making massive changes to the diet and completely turning the diet upside down. It's making a couple of little changes, because it's all about doing it, slowly and making sustained changes. But a lot of it's about changing the times when women eat, the times when they exercise. For me, I had to move from exercising in the morning to exercising in the afternoon, and just doing that without changing the food or anything that I did, just moving the time. I didn't change. I was still doing the same amount of exercise, but I was struggling to lose weight with a clean diet and exercising every day. But by moving my exercise to the afternoon, I lost 2 kilos within 2 weeks. It just all of a sudden it dropped off, and I changed nothing at that stage. I then went on and changed more of the food, and the weight continues to come off. So it is really, so I love about this, it's a personalized solution. So the thing is, you don't actually need a platform to tell you this if you are connected into your body. If you are really listening to your body and understanding how your body works, you can actually work this out for yourself. But it is really hard because we have become disconnected. And so at a minimum, I would say to you, and even if you don't want to go ahead and learn more about the personalised health solution, make sure in your diet that you are eating a clean diet that has got primarily, that's got vegetables in it. And if you wish to, if you feel that you can eat meat, put the meat in there. Make sure the meat is organic or at least grass-fed. Eating vegetables, if you can do organic, once again. If not, clean that up and use vinegar and water to remove the chemicals, and get rid of the processed foods and alcohol. Alcohol is a big one. And even for me, when I was experiencing all of the pain, and I was at that stage, I was only drinking like 1 glass of wine a week. On Saturday night, I'd have a glass of wine, and I tend to water my wine down with sparkling mineral water anyway. And I was in this constant pain. And just before Christmas, I decided that I would actually just cut that glass out. And sometimes I'd have a couple more glasses, but I just cut all alcohol out, 100%. I just stopped. And when I stopped, within a week, all of my pain had gone. And I have not had any pain whatsoever since then. And I haven't had a drink since then either. And my energy is a lot better. So my 2 big tips when it comes to dealing with your physical self is actually, I'm going to give you 3. Look at the food you're eating. Make sure that it's a diet that is primarily an unprocessed, low processed sugar diet. So get rid of all the processed carbohydrates, veggies and clean meats, drinking lots of water. Get rid of the alcohol. When you're drinking alcohol, and even if it's only 1 glass a week, it is impacting your liver. And if your liver's already struggling, you're going to find that you experience problems with sleep and hot flushing. And then the next thing is sleep, is aim to get as much sleep as possible. And that can be hard if you're hot flushing. So looking at that. And I would suggest that I don't generally prescribe a lot of supplements and herbs and that, but magnesium at a minimum. If you want to know the one hero supplement, take magnesium, because everyone's deficient in it, and it will make a massive amount of difference to sleep, to movement, to the food, everything, just magnesium. So that is your physical self. And then we look at the social self. One of the things that when I, speaking to women is we live in a connected world because we're so connected with technology, but so many people feel totally disconnected, and women in particular. Women need to have a community of women around them. It is within our DNA. We have always sat in circle up until, probably 75, 100 years ago, we were part of a village. And then probably, I'd say, maybe the Second World War was the big one, which actually we started to move into houses. We started to become more insular and do everything in our house, not going outside into the community too much. We would go out, we would work, we would then come home and stay in our homes. And we lost our connection with our tribe, with our village. But women need this. And, whenever you see women, you will see them, that they tend to automatically sit in a circle and talk. And this is one of the reasons why I run women's circles, and I also attend women's circles. I'm part of other circles, and I hold my own circles. Because as women, when we come together in circle, it's not about fixing each other. It is about supporting each other, because every single one of us already has the answers, already knows if we really tap into ourselves. And all the information I'm sharing with you tonight, your body already knows this stuff. It knows it already. It's just that you stop listening to it. The body has an innate intelligence. It knows how to transition through this stage of life. It knows how to do it. It knows how to balance its own hormones. But we're not giving it the right tools. We're not giving it the right ingredients to it for it to do that easily. We're throwing it out of balance by the things that we're in our environment, in our food. We're throwing it all out of balance. The body knows what to do. We need to start trusting it. And when we sit in circle, that's a lot of what that is. It's about the trust and being able to tap into your innate wisdom and to share that with other women, and to share that not in the way that you're going to fix someone else, but just share your experiences and to be heard, and the rest of the women hear what you have to say and they witness you. So community and relationships are really, really important. And when you look at the relationships within your own family unit, the relationship with your partner, with your children, this is also changing at this stage of life, because you are becoming a different person. And sometimes that can put a lot of pressure on your intimate relationships, because, you know, partners who are used to you have been one way for the whole time they've known you, all of a sudden you're changing and they don't know who you are anymore, and you probably don't know who they are, and then we can have shifts. Many women leave relationships at this stage of life, and I don't think you need to leave a relationship, but I think you do need to acknowledge that it's going to change. And if you're prepared to put the work in, and both of you work through the changes, and he accepts you for who you are and you accept him for who he is, then you can build a new relationship based on who you are. But it's really important to look at all of this. And it's also about having fun. And so many women are not having fun, and, you know, because they haven't spent their lives having fun because they've been busy raising children, working, bringing in an income, keeping a house, doing all of the work, that they've forgotten about fun. So it's really important that you bring fun back into your life in some way. What is it that you love to do? And it might just be turning the music on and dancing your heart out. You know, it could be, what is fun for you? And for some people, fun happens when they're with other people, so their fun happens in groups. Some women, fun is better for them when they do it on their own. So everyone's different as to what is fun. And in the PH360 platform, it actually talks about this as well, about whether or not someone works better in a group or whether or not they work better on their own, and the different types of people that we are. We can't expect that everyone's going to be like us. And I know, just looking in my relationship, my husband's very adventurous. He likes to go out and do risky things. I don't, because we're different personalities, we're different people. I like to feel safe and secure. So we have different values, and that actually, I didn't actually realize that until I knew we like different things, but when I got into understanding more about the health types in PH360, I realized why that is, because he is a different health type to who I am. So he has different priorities in his life and his health and what he does. And once you recognize that, it actually makes it a lot easier, because I know why he says the things he does. I know why he takes risks, because that's his biotype, his health type. I'm not the same. I'm just totally different. So we make different decisions. But it's really important for you. And if you don't have fun in your life, find something that's fun. Find something that you can do that is fun, and that will start to reduce the stress in your life. And the last thing I just wanted to touch on tonight is the connected self. And I think this is really, really important. I mean, we tend to focus on the physical as being the most important, but it's not. It's our connection to ourselves. And I have mentioned this a couple of times. It's like, as women, many of us have lost connection to our body, to our cycle, to who we are. You know, we started taking the pill when we were younger. We lost our cycles. And you do lose your cycle when you're on the pill, even though you might be bleeding. That is not a period. That's a withdrawal bleed. You are not ovulating. So if you're not ovulating, you can't have a period. So we lose our cycles. We lose the essence of who we are. Many women don't like their bodies as it ages. As they grow older, they may, as I said before, get softer around the edges, get grey hairs. But this is your experience. This is a body that is, housed babies. It's brought children into the world. It's raised humans, and we need to appreciate our body for who it is. We don't need to be, we don't all need to be a size 6 or a size 4 or whatever. Some of us need to be, and actually genetically we do, some of us are bigger and tend to carry more weight, because when we look at where we come in our evolutionary past, it was the bigger person, the bigger women that were able to keep the tribe alive. The really skinny people, they couldn't stay alive because they didn't have any reserves when there wasn't any food around. So the bigger people were able to give up their food to those that didn't have as much because they had enough fat stores. So we need to appreciate our body for what it is. And yes, maybe you would like to release some weight, and that's okay, because it's working towards your optimal self. But loving your body for who it is and where it is right now, with all the, the bumps, the lumps, the everything, the stretch marks, all that, there's a history there. And I think it's time for us to actually stop wanting to have a body of a 20-year-old and start accepting the bodies that we have and fall in love with what we have now. And that is very hard for many women. Many women struggle, and I know at times I do, to stand in front of a mirror naked and completely and utterly appreciate everything that their body looks like, everything their body's given them, and be in love with it. So ritual is really, really important. And so I encourage you to create some rituals around self-care, around self-love. Rituals of simple things like once you get out of the shower, having getting some sweet almond oil and a couple of drops of an essential oil that you like, and then massaging that into your body and telling saying thank you to your legs. Thank you for carrying me around. Thank you to my arms for being able to hold things, and just thank your body, and that make a ritual out of it. Or find other rituals. Journaling. You can journal the way you feel about yourself and the life that you want. Create rituals and celebrate who you are. Celebrate your milestones. Celebrate the magnificence of who you are. And one of the things that I really want to start introducing is a rites of passage celebration for women as they come through this stage of life. And I am looking at planning some retreats in the future where this is exactly what we're doing. It's going to be about ritual. It's going to be about celebration. It will definitely have women's circles in it. It will all be about self-love and self-care, but it'll be about reconnecting to who you are and going through a rite of passage which moves you from the stage of life that you are at through this menopause stage into your wise woman. And that's what I call the Marga woman. So Marga, M-A-G-A, means wise woman in Sicilian. So that's I'm going to be creating some rites of passage retreats around that. So keep an eye out on that. So there were the 3 things that I really wanted to focus on tonight. I've probably been talking for a long time. I'm not sure the timer hasn't been going. But just before I finish, I did mention a couple of times the Embrace program. And my Embrace program is a minimum of 3 months long. But I know for some women, they're not 100% sure of where they're at right now. And also the financial commitment may be a little bit large. So what I've done is I really wanted to offer those women who are ready to really step into the next stage of life, who really want to thrive in menopause. I thought I'd put together an introductory program. So this is just 1 month, and it's a way for you to get get used to working with me, to also understand the personalised health platform PH360 that I work with, and to get some easy changes and get some really quick results. So what I'm offering is you get 3 personal one-on-one calls with me. So we do one at the beginning when you very first start, one in the, one 2 weeks later, and then another one 2 weeks later. You will also get 12 months access to the personalised health platform PH360, and within that health platform, as I said earlier, it includes a food listing, it has got recipes, it's got meal planners, it's got exercise, it has got everything that you need in it, but it can actually be quite overwhelming when you very first start, which is why I'm adding the coaching. So I can actually guide you through it and set you up with a health plan, and then at the end of the month, you can then go ahead with that health plan and continue it on your own, or if you continue to want more help, then you can join the primary Embrace program, where there's a group of women who are moving through on a 3-monthly basis. I'm also putting one women's circle together, so I'm including a women's circle in there so that you can experience a women's circle, so you can actually find out. For those of you who have never been to one, it is really safe. It's a very sacred, and it's a gentle space. So I'm including that in there so you can get to experience at least one women's circle and find out. Well, I love them, so hopefully you will too. And you get 12 months access to the personalised PH360 platform, as I said, so you can continue on with it on your own. And I'm also including an upgrade voucher which you can use at the end of this introductory program if you wish to go into the full program. I'm going to give you a $200 voucher as well to help you on the way with the payment of the full program. Now, if you want to know a little bit more about the introductory program, hop over to the website bit.ly/embrace_intro. If you pop over there, all of the information is on there about the introductory program. Now, I need to let you know, whilst there isn't a time frame for when this pricing is available, there is a limit to the number of women I work with. I only have space for 10 clients with personal coaching. I just don't have time for any more than 10 clients. At the moment, I am working with 6. Some of them will continue on to the full Embrace program. Some of them will drop out. So that means that there's a minimum of 4 spaces available, possibly 6 spaces available, maybe more, but more will come up as we go on. But the deadline for this really isn't about a time, it is about the number of women I can work with. So as soon as the 10 spaces are full, this will close down. I will take the page down. When I've got space again, I will open it back up again. You can go on a waiting list as women go through the month. Some women continue on, some don't. So everyone's different depending on where they're at in their journey. So that's it from me today. Now, if you've got any questions, please just email me, angela@angelacounsel.com. If you want, I do offer a 30-minute free discovery call, but hopefully I've kind of gone through most of it tonight with you. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to send me an email and I'll answer them for you. If you're not already connected with me, everyone who's registered for the webinar is now on my database, so you'll get information from me anyway. I'm not very regular with sending out my newsletters, but you can check out. I've got 2 websites, angelacounsel.com or the Marga Woman Project, which is where my podcast is called Wise Women's Conversations, and also a lot of the blogs around menopause are all sitting over there on the Marga Woman Project, and you'll find me on social media. So I want to thank you for joining me tonight, and yeah, have an absolutely fantastic life, whatever, and I hope that some of you decide to join me in the Embrace introductory program. So from my heart to yours, infinite love and gratitude. Bye for now.